Muse Music Store and Mahaska County Conservation Board presents Eveland Access Summerfest Music by the River 2024, June 1st from noon to 10 p.m., featuring 8 musical artists with live music, activities like bingo, sand volleyball, and cornhole, food, and much, much more. It's a free event at the Eveland Access Campgrounds at 2890 Galveston Avenue, Oskaloosa. Bring a friend and have a lot of fun at the Eveland Access Summerfest 2024 Music by the River, June 1st from noon to 10 at the Eveland Access Campgrounds.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast. The podcast by the fan, for the fan. Of course, I'm your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. Joining me is my tag team partner. We are the co-champs of the For Frequency's Sake Network, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. As we are live and recording this, I want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day, because it is Mother's Day Sunday as we're going here. But we've got a cool guest in the studio, Black and Brave graduate. Mostly based out of Chicago, doing some wrestling there, but across the Midwest. We've got one Sean Logan, better known as Sabotage. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I'm living my best life. I just got off a main event tag team match last night, and I don't know why I got home at like 2 a.m. and woke up at around 6 a.m. So usually I'd be tired, but I am up. I'm ready to go. So I'm doing good. Doing good.
Now, will you hit a wall later this afternoon? Because if that was me, if I went to bed at 2 and woke up at 6, I would hit the wall about 3 p.m. this afternoon.
I think I will, because I usually try to maximize whenever I need. Like even today, I would have maximized sleep, but I don't know why. I was just like, I was more excited because I was like, you know what, like Cody Rhodes just won the world title at Mania, and he was on the Today Show at 8 a.m. and he probably had to fly to New York from Philly. And I was like, if he could do it, like, you better do this. So I was like, this is like a little taste. So I appreciate it.
Damn it! If he can finish his story, I can continue mine, right?
Yes. For real.
We'll talk about your match last night. It sounds like you're coming off an emotional high. You're feeling the highs. Give us the details about your match last night.
Yeah. We got face. So at Iron Spirit Pro, me and Gunner Brave were the tag team champions. We go as the 815, and we've been. I think DB, because he's the ring announcer there, and you guys know him from Sit Down Marks. He said 16 months we've had those titles. So. Really just kind of been collecting dub after dub. And I mean, we faced Bang and Matthews. I think they're ranked 38 in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Tag Team list this year. So that was just awesome to get opportunity to wrestle with them. And I think we only had about 15 minutes, but we went 27, and we were feeling it. I mean, we were feeling it, and the crowd kept responding. So, I know, as a worker, you're like, sometimes everyone wants to go home, but I don't know, there's pros and cons to it, and I mean, they were alive, they were with it, so like, why not keep giving them a show, So. Some unique spots in it too, like Gunner. He had this one spot where I'm in like a neutral corner, and he pulls out this, because you got the tag ropes, right? So he pulls out this like 18-foot tag rope, ties it, and then comes, gets me a tag, and they allowed it. And then Pepperton, the referee's like, nah, that ain't allowed. But that was a fun one. I did a spot with Davey Bang that was like, so I don't dance, whatever. Like, not all of us dance, but and being a heel, I'm like, I ain't doing that. I'm more of a chicken kind of heel. And I had a little arm wringer in, and he starts dancing to get out of the hold, and then I they told me that Darren Corbin did the spot, but it was like a spot where I was like, I don't dance at all. And then my leg like starts shaking, and then I like stop the leg, and then my other leg starts shaking, and then they both start going. So
Oh,
that little dance spot there, I thought that was fun. But then, we had Eddie, like a Eddie spot where we had an all down where with the chairs, you hit, throw the one guy, take the bump, and we were all down from the Eddie spot, so we all like pretend to get hit like by one another with a steel chair. So then the referee gets up, and Pepperton's like, what the heck happened here? We're all like, why is everyone unconscious? So that was a fun one. And then yeah, just a lot of spots that were just, I think it was a really cool match because being main event with those guys was just awesome. And um getting like "this is awesome" chant, you live for that, but like getting three in the same match, that's really cool. And maybe we did go a little long, but what, screw it. I'm sure, I think the promoter was happy, so that's all that matters, right?
absolutely. So, Sean, we'll hear more about your in-ring work as we go through the interview, but I'm going to steal Nick's thunder and ask
Yeah.
the question that everybody gets asked on this show. Why pro wrestling? What brought you in as a fan, and what was that crystallizing moment that made you decide, I have to do this?
Why pro? Okay. So I'll try not to bore you with the story, but so I first got a glimpse of it when I was 7. Me, my dad, and my sister were flipping through the channels, and my sister dropped on SmackDown, and then I saw The Undertaker, and I was hooked since. And fast forward about when I turned 12. I started training with a guy named Tony Rican in 12 by 12 wrestling ring. So like the rings you guys, any indie rings usually about 18 foot, WWE rings 20 by 20. But I had a 12 by 12 when I was 12 years old, and taking bumps that early, that probably wasn't pros and cons again. Like I might regret it one day. I do take care of my body pretty well. But taking bumps at 12, training for this, that's just, that might, cost me in the long run. But positive part of it is like I feel like I got such a head start, and I'm starting to get the fundamentals down of wrestling way quicker. A lot of people, they'll right out of high school or right out of college, um, they start training for pro wrestling, at 18 or at 22, 23. So thankfully I think it got me a head start. I definitely was like always top of every class I did for wrestling, like with Black and Brave. We had 12, no, we had 16, and then we ended with 3 at Harley Race. I also trained with Harley Race. I was one of his last classes before he passed away. But just like I think that gave me a head start, because like I knew, like when we're learning basics, I already knew the basics, so it got me a head start on all those classes. But not to ramble off, so but yeah, that's kind of how I got my foot in the door when I first saw Undertaker. Is the question also like why I love wrestling? Like why specifically pro wrestling is like
What got you hooked? What makes you keep coming back? You obviously
Yeah.
love pro wrestling, right?
Yeah. So I think I look at it like this. It's a little different take, but so I think like I don't know. I think a lot of people in the world, they're kind of, not a whole lot of people are like entertainers, right? They're more like a lot of people are living the same lives, and they nothing wrong with it, but like, a lot of people work their 9 to 5, and then on the weekends it's their time to go out, right? They want to get entertained because we all love entertainment. And I'm like, man, I want to be the entertainer, right? And so then I look back and I say, what are like the greatest forms of entertainment? And I think sports, I think music, and I think movies, right? And I don't know, maybe you guys got another take on it, but this is just those are my three, right? And I'm like, okay, pro wrestling has all three of those, movies, we tell a story in that ring, and we got characters like any movie ever has. With music, we're coming out in entrance music and we're performing in front of a live crowd like a concert. And then with sports, we're competing like athletes. We are athletes, but we're competing, for a prize or for a victory like sports athletes are. So I'm like, you get all three of those entertainments in one. That's pro wrestling, and that's why I think pro wrestling's the best form of entertainment. I think that's why I love it. Yeah, like that's why I love it, I think.
Sabotage, talk a little bit how you said you wouldn't recommend taking bumps or training at 12 years old, but how it got you ahead of the field, it got you ahead of the game a little bit. You knew what to expect when you went and trained at Black and Brave, when you went and trained with Harley Race. Talk about how having that head start really helped you out with those places.
Yeah, I think Tony Rican, he just had one of his last matches again at AAW. I wrestled there in Chicago, and but when I was 12, he started training me, and I think it gave me a head start because like at Harley's, I got a little bit of training in Indiana before Harley's, but right out of high school, went straight to Harley's instead of college. Thankful for my parents for letting me do that. But so I just think it's like you start taking your basic, flat back bump, and it's like, okay, I got this down. Not only, I mean, I don't have to do it 150 times either. You do a couple, and then coach is like, oh, okay, he's got it. Like, let's give the time to the next guy who still needs to work on it. I mean, does it suck, kind of waiting and watching so everyone gets to the next thing? Yeah, it does. But when I got time to that next thing, I didn't really have to think about what I already knew. I go straight to like chain wrestling, and then doing some spots and just really trying to get the structure of a wrestling match down, and like really worrying about that. More the meat and potatoes of wrestling versus just your basic fundamentals. That was something at Harley's, but it was only like 3, 4 of, well, I think it was like 7 of us. So from my class at Harley's, but we did kind of wait until everyone got it down to move on as a group. Versus Black and Brave, that was kind of a cool thing. They had open ring time. So let's say like you learn hip tosses, okay, for class. We'll work on hip tosses for that 3 hours, but if you didn't like get it as a group, like the next day we're not working on hip tosses, like we're moving on to the next subject. But Black and Brave gives you, let's say you train on a Tuesday and our training was 6 to 9, and then next morning you got open ring starts at noon. You could work on the hip tosses till 6 p.m. for practice the next day and get it down. But once class starts, we're on to the next subject, So I did like how we kept moving forward with that training. Both different approaches of training too. Like Harley's is very old school, of course, especially with the conditioning and weight training.
I think you're muted, Sean. Oh.
Uh-oh, I think he is.
I think you may have muted your mic if you can hear me. Let me send him let me hit him.